Welcome to the One Family podcast, where we desire to engage, empower, equip, and support families to do what God has called them to. Because when the family flourishes, the community flourishes. The time has come to be what God has made us to be.
Hi, my name is Stephen Hogue with OneFamily. You can check us out at onefamilyfl.com. And we really exist to train and equip the local church to help vulnerable families in our communities, families that are affected by the foster care system. And these are foster families, adoptive families, relative caregivers, and even the bio family. So that's what we do. Again, go to onefamilyfl.com and check it out. I really appreciate that. I want to do a little teaching today on what I call the 3 pillars of parenting, and I'm going to start with the first pillar today. Every book that I write, I include the 3 pillars of parenting. I think it's the foundation to being a parent. And those 3 pillars are identity, authority, and availability. Identity, authority, and availability. Identity is know who God says you are. Authority is know what God says you can do, and availability is do what God has called you to do. So this is going to be a 3-part series. I'm going to start today with identity. Know who God says you are. It is important as a parent to know your identity, because if you don't operate in the true identity of who God made you to be, it'll affect your parenting, it'll affect your marriage, it'll affect your relationship with your coworkers and everybody. So it's so important to know your identity. So we're going to start with John 8:31 through 36. Jesus is talking to the Pharisees. He said, to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you are my disciples, and then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now, many of you have heard that. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. This is important. They answered him and said, we are Abraham's descendants. We have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? Jesus replied, very truly I tell you, everyone who sins is a slave to sin. Now a slave has no permanent place in the family, but a son belongs to it forever. So if the son sets you free, you will be free indeed. That is key to identity. You're not a slave. You're not an orphan, but you're a son and a daughter. That's very, very important. Our identity is knowing we were made in the image of God. We are his. So I want to hit a couple of things here. Number 1, I'm a child and not a slave. Romans 8:15 says, the spirit you received does not make you slaves, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. You see, if you think about a slave, many of us have a slave mentality. A slave is defined by their performance. Their value is in what they do. And you have to understand that as a Christian, as a believer, you cannot earn salvation. You cannot earn God's love. You can't be good enough to achieve salvation or a place in heaven. All these other religions many of them are based on performance. They are based on continually to work hard and achieve something. I saw a man who was a part of another religion in another country, and he was asked, are you going to go to heaven? And his answer was, I really hope so. I'm working hard. And we can work as hard as we want, and that won't get us to heaven. We're not defined by our performance. We're defined by Jesus' performance on the cross. See, what he did on the cross made a way for us to have access to God and go to heaven and be with him. It's what he did that helps us to get to God. It's not what we do. So you're not a slave. You're not defined by your performance. You are a child of God. Number 2, we have to understand that we are valuable. So just say this to yourself. Say, I am valuable. Psalm 139:17 says, how precious are your thoughts about me, O God. They cannot be numbered. I can't even count them. They outnumber the grains of sand. And when I wake up, you're still with me. We live in the Daytona Beach area, so not far from here. If I go east, I'm going to hit the ocean. And I can go out there and I can stand on the sand and I can look down and pick up sand. And I can, which is going to be hard because I wouldn't see it very well, but I can try to number the grains of sand. How long do you think that would take me? God thinks about you more than the grains of sand on the seashore. So you have to understand that you're valuable. What the devil will try to do is try to convince you that you're worthless. Now, what the devil always does is he tries to project on us how he feels. He feels worthless. He was removed from heaven. He was kicked out of heaven because of pride. He was alone. He was isolated. He was orphaned, if you will. Orphans become orphans through no fault of their own. But in a sense, the devil was orphaned from the family of God, even though it was because of his own pride. He was separated. He was isolated. He was removed. And he feels worthless, so he wants you to feel as worthless as he feels. But you're not worthless, and I want to prove that today. Number one, in Psalm 139, it says that he thinks about you more than the sand and the seashore. But that's not the only thing that proves your value. See, a lot of believers, a lot of Christians, their value, their self-worth level is very low, very low. They don't see value in themselves. Again, because they have a performance mentality. But something's worth what someone is willing to pay. So my question is, what did Jesus pay for you to be a part of the family of God? What was the price that he paid? Did he pay $1 million? Did he pay $10 million for you? What did he pay? Well, he paid with his life. And something's worth what someone's willing to pay. So if he paid death to get you, you're valuable. So you need to get that in your spirit. You are valuable, not because of your performance, but because of what Jesus did in his performance. He placed value on you by dying for you on the cross. And then the last point is, I am made in the image of God. So I'm a child, not a slave. I am valuable. And then thirdly, I am made in the image of God. Genesis 1:27 says, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them male and female. Another reason the devil hates you is because when he sees you, he sees God, because we were made in God's image. And he hates that. You are a child of God, made in the image of God, and you need to walk in that. You see, in America, we have the political system. We have presidents, and these presidents are these candidates will run for office and try to convince you to vote for them. But in the old days, especially in Bible times, you had kings, and kings became kings because they were born into the family. So they inherited the throne, not had to be voted in. And one thing we try to do is we try to earn God's vote. But what we have to understand is we inherit this place as being a child of God. We have an inheritance in the kingdom and all that God has for us, because he created us in his image. He created us in his image, and we were created to worship him. And the only way you're going to be fulfilled in life is if you live a life surrendered that honors God and is dedicated to him, and that you know your identity as a son or daughter, as a child of God. He loves you, you're valuable, and you have a purpose. And as I close here, there's two things that you have to know. There's two questions that have to be answered for anybody to walk in peace and fulfillment. Two things. And they only can be answered by God himself. They can't be answered by the world. They can't be answered by money, by anything else. And that is, who am I and why am I here? So I believe I know I can answer the first one for you. Who are you? You're a blood-bought child of God, made in the image of God. Number two, why am I here? Because God has a purpose and a destiny for your life. Now, I don't know exactly what that looks like for you. but you definitely have a purpose. What the enemy will try to tell you is you're worthless, God can never use you, and so then you'll never walk out his purpose. And I want to tell you, if you don't know who you are or why you're here, it will ultimately, almost in every case, lead to some sort of addiction. Because if you can't fill or allow the Lord to fill the void of those two questions, it's very painful. So it will often lead to different types of addiction. Could be alcoholism, could be substance, but it could be just the addiction of your own agenda, the addiction of money, fame, popularity, whatever it is. You'll often need something to help with the pain of not walking in your identity. It's very, very painful. Who am I? Why am I here? Let the Lord answer those questions for you and walk in the true identity that God has made for your life. My name is Stephen Hogue. I'm with OneFamily. You can check us out on OneFamilyFL.com. Pray about supporting us. We are donor supported. We are missionaries really in the foster care system. And we would love for you to partner with us in all that God is doing. So, Father, I pray for those that are watching today. I pray, Lord, as parents, maybe even grandparents watching, that they would walk in their identity as sons and daughters of the King. Not slaves and orphans, but sons and daughters. And I pray that they would know their value, their worth, that they are made in your image, and you love them, and you have a plan and purpose for their life. Bless them today, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for watching.